I didn't, you know. Okay, I'd like to call the Fairfield County Council Budget Work Session to order Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Can we get a approval of the agenda?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved in second that for the approval of agenda. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. No opposers. Agenda stands approved. Invocation by Councilmember Roseborough.
Bow your heads, please. Father God, we invite you to preside over this meeting. Even if we have differences of opinion, give us unity of spirit. The wisdom to make wise decisions for the citizens of this county. All these blessings we ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Again, this is our second budget work session. We covered. Want to thank everyone for the last meeting. We covered a lot of ground in the last meeting. So again, we want to thank everyone for doing so. I think we got two handouts that was given to us. So we're gonna get the first one. I want to go through the first one. Fairfield County Council County Agency Allocation for the fiscal year June 30th, 2022. You had something?
Mr. Bell, we do have Jason Pope here, and we had a few questions about that. If we could get him out of the way, I promised him I'd let him talk first to answer any questions as far as the equipment that may be available to go into the new River Road Station and where that equipment's coming from.
Okay. We can do that. Thank you.
Mr. Pope?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Understand that y'all had some good discussion, productive meeting last week, and I think there was a few questions regarding the River Road Fire Station, I think, in terms of the equipment that we had to go in the building. And so, as you know, the site work is just about done. Just to bring you up at speed on the project, the site work is really close to being done. We've got an approved set of drawings for a building, a conceptual for the building, which we're looking forward to putting out for bid. But I think the question was about equipment to go inside the fire station, because as you guys know, I know Chairman Bell knows, that a building is not a fire station without fire trucks. Doesn't do us any good. Of course, this project has been ongoing, for several years. And so we knew that. And so the last, I think it was, I started here in 18. So there was a fire truck purchased in 2017 and one purchased in 2018. And when we added those two trucks to our fleet, we did not take the trucks that they were replacing out of service. We kept them in service because we knew we were going to need two fire trucks to go in a new fire station. So simply put, we do have serviceable equipment, a fire engine, and what would serve as a tanker to go in that fire station as soon as the building is completed. So that's our plan. We've kept those trucks in service. We check them every month. And so that's the plan as it sits today. So the good thing I will add too is the county this year is going under a consolidation in terms of our ISO ratings. So once we get a new ISO rating for the entire county, the good news about that with the new fire station is as soon as that station is completed and we put trucks in it, it automatically gets our ISO rating. It doesn't have to be reevaluated or anything. So that's a huge advantage for that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pope. One of the things that I'm talking to Mr. Taylor today, and but he got you to come anyway. I said if you can assure us that you had the trucks to go into the building, I guess there's no need to have that discussion. I think all the council members would be okay with that. We've already approved the money for the building. So if you got the trucks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a good night.
Okay. Ms. Bass.
Okay. I think after our last work session, one of the things everybody wanted was a more detailed list of the allocations and specifically what a 20% reduction and a 30% reduction would look like. So on your sheets, the blue section at the top, I've kind of grouped these. The blue section are our discretionary allocations, and I've included our 2020 adopted, 21 adopted, what they requested. The 2022 administrator column, that is what is in the draft of the first reading. And then
Repeat what you just said.
the column that says 2020 county administrator, that is what is in the big thick budget worksheet you have. That's the first draft of the first reading. That's prior to any reductions that we talked about last time. That is as it stands at this moment. I don't change that worksheet until it's an official change. So I just want to be sure that y'all understood that. And then, of course, what a 20% reduction and 30% reduction would be. So with the discretionary group, if we reduce those by 20%, that's a savings of about $119,000. 30% would be about $179,000. I left the rescue squad kind of grouped together as we talked last week that, you know, even though I think it is technically a discretionary funding, you know, the reality of cutting the rescue squad just might not be a good one. But if we reduce that by 20%, it would be, you know, about 4,000, 30% would be about 6,000. The group in the middle, the orange group, that's a special revenue fund allocation. And I specifically included the 2020 adopted budget because we did reduce our funding from 2020 to 21 for the Chamber of Commerce. And I also want to explain the funding. I'm going to just actually read it right from the state code for these two funds. That money comes straight from our state accommodations tax. It's very specific in how we have to spend it. So the first group, that's tourism promotion, 30% of our state accommodations must be allocated to a special fund, which it is, and used only for advertising and promotion of tourism to develop and increase the tourism attendance. And then further down, it says the municipality or county shall select one or more organizations such as a Chamber of Commerce, Visitor and Convention Bureau, or Regional Tourism Commission, which has existing ongoing tourism promotion. So that is why so much of that money goes to the chamber. The second piece of that money is for tourism related. And again, it says the remaining balance, which it breaks out how we calculate this balance, the remaining balance plus earned interest received by the municipality or county must be allocated to a special fund. And again, it is for tourism related expenditures. And it can be used, you know, for a little bit different than just promotion. But again, it has to all be directly connected with attracting tourists to our community. The tourism related section, which is in our Fund 202, is where we think we can fund some of our website from, you know, some of our own promotion. And so I've moved that down there also. So back to the big sheet. Where we are right now in our draft budget is $50,000 for chamber under tourism promotion, $16,000 for Old English District, and both of those are under Fund 201. Fund 202 for tourism related is $44 for the chamber, $28 for the Railroad Museum. The 20% reduction, you can see the column for that, and then the column for the 30% reduction. Since this money is directly tied to what we receive, I went back and looked at our revenue trends. So for Fund 201, we've collected about $45,000, you know, give or take a little, but it's been right on that $45,000 mark for the last about 4 years. So with the 30% reduction, that would put the chamber at 35,062 and Old English at 11,766, which is a total of 46,827. I think that is very realistic with what we anticipate the revenue to collect. The tourism promotion section, if we reduce the chamber to the 20% reduction, I think the desire was to leave the railroad museum where it was because of some different developments right there. And then move in about $36,000 of the county website out of the general fund. That total is like $99,534. Again, I looked at the revenue we've collected in Fund 202 for about the last 4 years, and it's been right at the $100,000 mark. Like I said, give or take, but it's been right there. So I think that highlighted square box is very realistic to the revenue we would collect, and using it in both of these cases, using it as we're supposed to use it. On below the orange section, the hospital and library, again, they have a separate millage. And then the bottom section is non-discretionary fees and allocations that we don't really have a lot of wiggle room in there. So I'll leave that if y'all have any specific questions about any of this.
I got a question. So the Chamber of Commerce, the 30%, we're anticipating $36,000 to be coming in from the 30%.
No, I think we'll get, I think we'll probably get about 45,000. I was trying to find my little revenue sheet. I might have left it on my desk.
Yeah, you said 45,000.
Yeah.
For over 4 years.
All right.
So the last couple years, we've gotten 45, 986 and 17, 48, 18. We got 50 in 2019. 2020 was back down to like 44. So like I said, it's right on that $45,000 mark. So I think where I've got that bowl box, 35 to the chamber and 11,766 to Old English, I think that's very realistic to what we'll collect. And both of those agencies, they are the agencies within our community that are doing tourism promotion.
Okay.
And so what that means is that we won't be taking any money then from the general fund for those two.
Not for those two. No, sir.
Okay. That's if we go to 30%.
Right.
Okay. Okay, the next one we want to go through is the fund equity change report.
Yeah. The other item that was requested was the balance, the fund balance. So I'm going to explain this report a little bit. I explained it to Mr. Bell. It's probably been a couple months ago when he had requested one at a regular meeting. It looks like a really busy report, but I think it helps explain how fluid fund balance is, and that's real important to understand. So the column, it's almost right in the middle that says current balance. If you'll look right under that first subtotal line at that 18,011,002, if you remember, that was the exact ending balance in our audit at the end of 2020. So we take that number, of course, any money we deposit, any checks we cut, and then we get what our estimate fund balance would be as of, and I ran this on 3/26. So as of that day, because every time we make a deposit, every time we cut a check, that fund balance changes. It's a constantly moving number. So that is, as of 3/26, that is our general fund balance. The other funds, this report groups them, and so you've got all your special revenue funds, and they are, for example, the first two you see are 201 and 202. That's our tourism related and tourism promotion that we just got through talking about. That money comes from a completely separate source and has a very specific purpose. And another one, just to use for an example, 229, which is down toward the bottom, it has a fund balance of $909,000. That money is very specific for 911 basically for the console for the dispatchers. I mean, it can't really be used for anything outside of the dispatcher's daily job. So even though these in this special revenue section, there are some big balances, but they're very specific to what they have to be used for. And they come from a very specific source. That money doesn't necessarily come from general fund. If you want to flip to the third page, that starts like our capital projects funds. And these are where we do our capital improvements, vehicle replacement, building improvements, all of that. And again, some of them have some pretty good balances. It may be that we've got projects, obviously, that are in the works that aren't complete. Some of that money comes from special revenues. We get a lot of grants for stuff like that, a lot of things from commerce. Some of it is a transfer out from general fund. If we have to, a vehicle replacement, for example, if we've got to fund it to buy cars in a particular budget year, we'd budget that money to come out of general fund and move there to buy those. So that's kind of how those funds work. But again, that money is it's in there for a specific purpose. And then of course the funds at the bottom, agency funds and such, we don't touch those at all. But that's just a real high level overview of that fund balance report and kind of what the fund balance really represents. It's not, it's not just a big fat account somewhere full of money. It's a constantly moving number every time. Like I said, every time we make a deposit, every time we cut a check, it changes. But if y'all have a specific question about a specific fund, I wasn't going to go through every single one, but I'll just take your questions.
Ms. Bass, is there, as you look through this fund balance, is there any money in any account that is not allocated for up until June 30th or beyond?
About the only place that I think if in our building contingency fund, that's where we've budgeted some projects and stuff. If we chose to not do something we'd already planned to do, there would be money left there. But they're just not balances hanging out there. Some of the funds do accumulate a little fund balance, like our road maintenance fee, for example. We collect those fees. If we don't spend it all in any given year, it rolls forward to the next year. But again, it's for that specific purpose. We have a little capital improvement fund for solid waste and public works, and they might accrue a little bit of a fund balance, but again, it's kind of for their needs. And from time to time, like if we've had to come back and ask for something for either of those, we might say we're going to take it out of fund balance. It is that specific fund balance. It's not general fund necessarily.
So you couldn't take it out of their fund balance and use it for something else?
No.
Ms. Trapp,
On the capital project building contingency fund, so what other projects do we have outstanding that?
I didn't print my project report. I had intentions of doing that, but we've got anything really that we had planned, in the current 2021 budget. Our fire station money's still out there. I think we've got a parking lot still out there. We've got some money for Austin Trailhead. There are several different things that are started and not complete that have some balances out there. I can
Can we get it? Yeah, can we
get a better detail of that. Yeah.
okay.
Also, the Walter Brown Industrial Park.
Okay. I can get some details on both of those.
As well as the capital project for the public works.
Theirs is probably some of the equipment
That was just.
that we just hadn't paid for yet. Yeah.
Okay, the capital project for McMaster, what is that? It's number 407.
Okay. Let me,
That land we just bought.
I'll get the detail on that one. I think that was the, might have been part of the industrial park. The Walter B. Brown Industrial Park, that was where the speculative building sold. That's the big revenue coming in there.
Okay, is the capital project water sewer, is that saying we overspent by 255,000?
No, sir, we had budgeted a transfer in that account, to transfer money in from general fund. And some of those we don't do until the end of the year because we're only going to transfer, if it's for a very specific thing, we're only going to transfer exactly what we need. And that's what that would be.
So what is that?
That was the purchase of the land for the, water sewer plant.
But I thought we already done that.
We have. It's just showing you the activity in that fund.
Okay.
This is current year activity. This really isn't future year budget. This is current activity.
Okay.
And now if we look at current activity and we look at the solid waste recycling, are we capturing any money, Mr. Taylor? I guess I'm asking this for both of us. With the recycling center being closed on Wednesdays, I think that you said that they were also selling metal or collecting metal and that you would have income. Is that something we're realizing?
I don't know if that's reflected in this budget yet, but we are realizing additional profits from the recycling, and we do have a savings associated with being closed on that day. I had those numbers, but I don't have them with me tonight. I don't know if you have those specifically, Ann.
I don't, but also that would not be captured in this capital project fund. That's general fund activity.
Okay.
This is purely the purchase of equipment, machinery. And again, both of these, 413 and 414, we just approved a couple of pretty big purchases. And I think that's why they both got pretty significant fund balances because it's probably in the process, but the bill hadn't been paid.
Just as information, when one of the things I talked to Mr. Taylor about today is, we had did some work on, I guess, small engine repair and that kind of work. I guess he brought forth some numbers and I think we didn't realize the savings. We thought we were getting additional savings, but we were not. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I think when we looked into that, what I did is took the two vendors we use the most for that kind of thing and kind of analyzed it over about a 5-year period, expecting to see maybe a decrease in service and an increase in parts and supply, something like that. But it really didn't seem to be much of a trend at all either way. And it was actually kind of very small dollars. But I think there's so many other factors in that as well. I think the age of your equipment, you have a year where you've got all new equipment. Well, you're not going to have to buy any parts to fix it in-house or send it out. I think there's just a lot of different variables, but I don't think it really was that significant of a savings.
You probably would save more time than anything else by having an inside.
I don't really know. I guess it probably just depended on the staff doing it, if they had the time or if it was,
We struggle with that in general, not just in small engine, but also with our vehicles, finding qualified people and keeping qualified people that can actually do the work safely. That's been a problem for us for several years now. We have how many positions that are vacant there that we can't get filled?
We had 2 for the longest, but we have 1 now. Out of person department.
Right. We're kind of reduced to essentially being able to change oil, those kind of things. Just very basic maintenance.
Last week, not last, yeah, it was last week, last Tuesday, we talked about a lot of cuts. And we spent some time looking at those cuts. Do we have a tally of what that did to the total budget that we could see tonight?
Well, I mean, I have the sheet that I think we gave you last week. I can make make some copies if we want it again. I didn't send it out again. But with the things that we discussed, it would bring us down to use of fund balance of about $17,000, which I think is a reasonable place to be.
Okay, and was that a 20% cut, 30% cut in these discretionary allocation, or what that was?
100% cut, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 100% cut.
Okay. And we know we're not going to do 100% cut. I don't think so.
Question.
Yes.
Without a doubt, I do believe we need to cut, but I want to ask staff, have we done any research on the rescue plan that's supposed to come out? And when it does come out, because from what I'm reading, we should be getting over 20 million. So,
Well, what I've seen is our county will get it's a little over 4 million, and we would get 2.2 in one payment and then 2.2, it says no earlier than 12 months later. So at least at minimum a year later. But I also I was actually trying to find if I could find some more updated information. And one of the documents I found from NACO, it still was worded if this is signed, and so it still kind of was using that term if. So I don't really know if we ought to count on that or not.
well, I wouldn't say count on it, but I guess we could plan in case we do get it. And I'm just curious, how could that money be utilized? Is it certain stipulations on it?
General list here. Now, they still say they're supposed to, they're gonna submit a list to the president or his staff or whatever to determine specific answers. But this I'm looking at came from the Municipal Association, and it's got 4 categories and says these funds may be used to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits, or aid to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. That's 1. Number 2, respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers that are performing such essential work, or by providing grants to eligible employers that have eligible workers who perform essential work. Number 3, provide government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year prior to the emergency. And number 4, make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. Funds may not be used to cut taxes.
One of the things we were thinking about as that money came in, potentially using the request of action process, if we pass the budget in its current form, the cut form, not the one that was presented. But then as this money came in, then we could come back to council with request of actions and use the money through that process.
And do we know how that money has to be booked?
What do you mean, like record as
Recorded.
revenue? Yeah. I mean, it would be recorded as revenue. It'd probably be put in a special revenue fund because it's going to come with strings. It won't be general fund revenue.
Okay.
I guess I was thinking today too was we might be able to use it for salaries and that kind of thing, but from what you're reading, that may not be the case.
Yeah, it's a,
Well,
Go ahead.
it looks like it's for like emergency service workers, like premium pay. or hazard pay, kinda, is the way I take it.
All right. Okay.
Interesting.
Chairman,
Yes.
I think with the outside agencies, if there's a way, I see we have a 20% and a 30% cut across the board. But I think if staff can look at all these outside agencies and determine that maybe a cut to one might not need to be as great as a cut to another, and kind of adjust it that way. I understand what we're trying to do, but some of these agencies might need a whole lot more to sustain their agency than others, instead of cutting everyone across the board, 30% or 20%.
Yeah, or,
Have any particular ones?
Well, Fairfield Behavioral Health Services, when you look at, let me find them
It's the second from the top.
right there.
mhm.
We adopted 62,944 in 21. And now they're requesting 69,000. Recommendation from the county administrators to stay the same. But if you look at a 20% and a 30%, 50,000 and 44,000, their agency might need that 62,944 that we gave them last year, and might be able to make up the difference from another agency. And maybe, maybe someone might say that's not fair to other agencies, but to me, you got to look at the services they providing, and are those services greater than maybe another agency?
Yeah, I think,
Okay, and one of the things staff did last time, Mr. Pauling, is you look at it, and what they said, they cut this part out for this batch 100%, right?
Yes, sir.
So what we are saying is that I asked her on one of the questions to look at 20%, then 30%, because really, one of the things I don't see us doing is cutting out all the services for people
right,
and the services that people need. For instance, we're going to take a big hit this year, just on road repair work, and that's one of the services that a lot of people be asking us to deliver. Again, like the recycling center, another service people be asking us to deliver. So if we want to go through this list and just go through it, we can. But one of the things we don't want to do, I don't think, that's just me now, I'm just one person. I don't want to see us cut all the services um, um, for people, for items that help people, especially when they're in their hour of need.
Mr. Chair, in taking a look, I think that if we take a look at the funds that we're talking about getting for the rescue plan, if we look at the fact that you're talking about the negative impact is one of the sections that money could go towards, the nonprofits would fall right under that category. And there may be a way that we can use some of those funds to maintain some of the funding that we're talking about cutting. So say, for instance, we're looking at a 20% cut or whatever, that the money comes from those funds to replace that amount. Is that something that we might be able to look at, or?
If that's one of the, when it specifies, if it specifies that, yes.
Mhm.
Do that.
And now that money is going to be used in next year's budget rather than this year's budget?
I'm not really sure. It'll all depend on when we receive it. And the one thing I saw said we should get it we should get the first installment in 60 days, which would be the first installment would be in 2020. I'm sorry, 2021. The second installment would be in 2022, which would be this budget. But there again, there's still that term if I see flowing through there a lot. So I don't know when exactly that 60 days will begin. There's just not a lot that's real concrete about that yet. But if we get the money in 2021, it may still be able to be spent in the future year, because if we get it right at the end of the year, I mean, you don't have time to use it.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Roosevelt.
Yes, when you first asked the individual departments to make cuts, you didn't give them a percentage. You just asked them to make cuts, right?
We ask them to shoot for like 10 to 15%.
And they did. The majority of them did.
I do. I feel like where it's reasonable, some of our departments, little small departments that really only have salaries and, maybe office supplies, it's just not a lot to cut. But I felt like they all came to the table very reasonable, very willing to cut where they could.
But we can't go back and ask them to cut more. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I guess we can. Probably, I feel like where we are now, if we ask departments to cut more, it's going to either be, they're going to cut to a point that what we provide is going to have to go down. We provide services. If we cut too deep into people and what it takes to provide those, that's going to go down.
Okay, but the furloughs are still on we're asking people to furlough a week.
That's one of the options. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking if we're asking people to furlough, then, we should take the department down to the bare minimum. That's just my opinion. I'm just one person.
Well, our furlough,
Given a directive to, cut 20%, across the board, bare minimum before you ask people to, give up salary.
well, I think the purpose, and Brad, you jump in wherever you're ready, of the furlough of 1 week was to try to keep from having to cut somebody out of a job. I'd rather get 1 week less than be out of a job.
Okay. And does that furlough apply to council?
I would recommend that it does.
I agree.
So it does
Okay
apply to
with it.
council too.
It gotta be up for y'all.
I'm okay with it.
I agree that it'll apply to council.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem with it.
Go ahead, Ms. Paul.
Mr. Taylor, for years that I've been on council, I think we have asked Midlands Tech to provide some kind of documentation every year on the amount of students that are going per semester, and they have failed to do so. And they always just give a blank piece of paper with an amount on it. And when you look at the impact on Fairfield County citizens, it states the reason for this money is to cover the out-of-county rate versus the in-county rate. Well, two questions I have is that we have a Midlands Tech in Fairfield County, so I don't know how we would be charged an out-of-county rate when we have one in Fairfield County. And the second thing is, if you take the difference between the out-of-county rate and the in-county rate, it's $564. If you take $185,000 and you divide it by $564, you come up with 328 students that would have to go to Midlands Tech on a yearly basis from Fairfield County to make up that money. I don't think that's happening. I don't think we're sending 328 students per year to Midlands Tech.
But not only that, I think that money comes out of the Promise Program too, so.
Right. But still giving them, is the 185 including the Promise Program money?
No, that's budgeted in a different line.
And we added, I think, 25,000 to that, didn't we? We had 75,000 we were giving them.
Yeah.
Promise and
Right.
you bumped it 25, right?
Part of the reduction, if we were to remove the funding for the allocation part in Midlands Tech, we were going to increase the Promise Program to 100,000 to make sure we had enough there to cover anybody from Fairfield County that wanted to go.
Right, it seems like to me, if we're paying for kids their tuition through the Promise Program, and we also giving 150,000, 60,000, 80,000 to Midlands Tech, I mean, I would consider that like double dipping. And I just don't understand, if we have a Midlands Tech in Fairfield County, can you explain why we would be charged an out-of-county rate?
I struggle to understand that also. I do not understand why we'd be charged an out-of-county rate for several reasons. I think we're in their assigned service delivery territory, so therefore we should be, in the we and anyone else in their assigned area should be one rate, not an out-of-county rate. I can see somebody coming from outside of their service delivery area, and outside of service delivery area fee would be higher. And also we have a campus here, so I would think we should be charged the in-county rates. We did ask that question directly to Mr. Rames the other day when he was here. I don't feel like I got a satisfactory answer that I can share with you on that.
Well, and I feel like we address this every year, or we talk about it and nothing is ever done about it. And that's $150,000. And like I said, if you divide that, I mean, it would be in our best interest to pay the out-of-county rate.
I think it could come directly out of the Promise Program money, and we would still be fine, because at this point, we're typically using about $30,000 a year out of the Promise Program money.
I think Dr. Rames said it was also for like advertising and
I mean,
handouts and if I'm not mistaken.
if you divide that difference, you coming up with 328 students.
But I still agree with you.
Yeah, I mean,
He has requested, instead of us doing an allocation like this, that we assign a millage rate to just the college to help replace this. I don't think we can recommend that at this time, but that was one of the things that he did request for us to consider at some time in the future.
well, and I would like to see, if you can do it for me, the enrollment of Fairfield County students that's in Midlands Tech at this time. And also classes that's being offered.
Is that including Promise Program candidates?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can do that for me.
Currently. And the way we have the Promise Program set up also is, if they use that money, great. And we want it to be used to support people getting an education. But if they don't use that money, it does kind of roll back to us. The way we're allocating this, it just goes directly to them and doesn't roll back to us if it's not used.
Right.
And I can't tell you, Councilman Paul, exactly how it's being used at this point.
I have never seen any kind of documentation in 4 years besides a blank piece of paper that states we need this money for out-of-county rates. I mean, that's not acceptable when we're trying to make budget cuts and talking about furloughing our own employees, but we can't get an explanation from Midlands Tech on where $150,000 is going.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. One of the things, you all, is in the midst of this, in the midst of cutting the budget this year, if you all look at your package that you got on the first time, if you look over there to the right when it looked at the capital projects, one of the things you seen was wait until next year, wait wait. Okay, even with the budget, this year, we're putting off a roof that we put off, I think this is the third year that we end up putting it off. So we're gonna have to do something structurally different than what we're doing today. Because if we don't, we're gonna be in the same shape next year or even worse. Now, that might sound like gloom and doom, but if you look at it, I talked to Mr. Taylor today about that, and really he agreed, I agreed, whichever one you want to frame it, is that if you look at the budget, for next year, this year we're not buying a police car, a sheriff car. We're not buying any ambulance. We're not buying any fire trucks. We're putting off a roof. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff that at some point gonna come due. So we got to begin to look at some things that that we may not have looked at before. Now, and I'll tell you what, I think we need to have a real discussion, and it may not be that we can do anything this year about where we are, okay? Except make some cuts to this year's budget. But I do want us to kind of look at it and have some thinking. I talked to I did call I talked to Mr. Taylor today first, but I did call Mr. Porkin, and I asked him, could we, since we need to have some discussion about positions and that kind of thing, I think it was Mr. Calder sent us all these documents on positions and salaries and that kind of thing. He sent us all this information today. So I would like for us, if y'all think it's a good idea, and I'm good either way, but what I want us to do is to um, go into executive session so we can talk about salaries, positions, and see what we need to do. If we can get a motion to go into executive session.
I have a question first, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
And it is from a legal standpoint. Does that not open us up to litigation?
Mhm.
You're talking specific individuals, then that's would be appropriate executive session discussion. You're talking about letting go of particular individuals, but just the general finance, open discussion, but the
Salary.
particular people.
Yeah, I mean,
So if we're talking about particular positions, can we do that in executive session?
Ultimately, positions are particular people, which means you can readily identify people by position. You're talking particular people, yes, but in terms of the ultimate decision, it's an open session discussion.
Okay.
well, let me ask you this. Executive session wasn't on the, unless I missed it, it wasn't on the agenda for tonight. Wouldn't that be something that has to be noticed 24 hours in advance?
Well, you can amend an agenda by 2/3.
He's still.
You can,
But it needed to be amended as soon as we accepted the agenda, not halfway through the agenda.
it can be amended in the course of the meeting.
And
If there's no particular time when it has to be done, it can be done. But it has to be by a requisite vote.
okay, and I'm okay. Mr. Pauly, I'm really okay if we don't have the discussion. Okay, I'm okay.
Discuss positions in open session? Discuss positions in open session.
Okay, we can do it here.
Because that's more of a policy thing. Getting particular individuals and just people by name and stuff. That's all will allow for executive session.
My only question, Mr. Chair, is that I understand discussing positions, but how can I make a sound decision on Jane or John Doe, and I'm not aware of Jane or John Doe's
Job description.
job description. That's my only question. Therefore,
Making a decision, we just gonna
Right.
discuss, am I right or wrong?
Right. I don't think, if you look at the total budget itself, only thing we've done thus far is made some recommendation, begin to talk about where we are. So again, I don't think we're gonna, vote on anything. We're just gonna have a conversation, seeing, what we think about, making cuts, or should we make cuts, or should we look at attrition, or what should we do?
But
Yes, sir. Mr.
Should-
Gilbert.
shouldn't we look at making cuts elsewhere before we do the salaries? I mean, positions and things like that, let them,
Let them see what they can do and then bring it back, the budget back to us. And then we look at it again and say, well, that's still not acceptable. But to look at employees' positions and say, well,
By us discussing it, that still don't affect what Mr. Paul is saying.
Okay.
We're not making a decision. But before we get to that, I still had a couple of things about with the book.
Okay.
And, general operating office furniture for $50,000.
Where is that?
On page 12.
That's office furniture for the whole county, if anything needed to be replaced or purchased. We budget all under general operating rather than each department, budget specific, line items in their budget.
Do we have any used furniture anywhere?
We do, a lot of times, I think there's a good bit of stuff that we have in storage, and a lot of times we'll go down, I think it's mostly at the Han building, and, pick through and see what we can find. It really just depends on the need and what we've got. If, we've got it, we would use it, of course, before we would buy it.
I think we need to consider taking that out.
I do too.
Line 5401.04, the rent lease in office building space, 600,000. Is that for Mount Zion?
It is, yes.
excuse me for
Yes.
a minute. Can you tell us what page you're on?
Page 12.
In the big book?
Yes,
Yes, it is Mount Zion.
Mount Zion.
Lease. Yes.
When do the rent payments start?
What is it? May, I think is when it is.
Of this year?
It is, yes.
How we start in May and the building not finish in May?
Well, it's a discussion we gotta have.
Because we can't pay rent before we not in the building. Okay. Any thoughts on that one, Mr. Trout?
And also, well, we're gonna get to that probably later on in the budget. The grant match for municipalities, what that entails.
That would be a grant match if we could get something in conjunction with the town and we had to put up a match. And then the grant match, the general grant match would just be, a lot of that's used for economic development and that kind of thing. It was reduced pretty significantly. Last year, we had $150,000 specifically for the Council on Aging in there. Of course, that is not recurring. And then we reduced it some more. And just with the thought that if a particular economic development opportunity comes up or whatever, we just would have to come forth at the time as an ROA rather than just budget a big number.
I think we need to consider removing that to zero.
In the list where we had additional reductions,
You had already had it in there?
I had reduced it an additional 200,000, leaving just 100 there.
That's probably true. Myself and Jenkins, we agreed with this. Let's stay at 100.
Do you want me to make copies of this right quick?
Is that the same one from,
I think you should have it. Yeah, that's it.
I have it.
Okay. I just want everybody to have it if you needed it.
it was another one, and this one dealing with salary. It was on the sheet that Mr. Bradford. It was a position building official / project manager. Do we have projects going on right now?
Which one was that one? Do we not kill? Trying to think what.
Is it,
Because we already
It's-
got one building, it's in community development. We already got, it's
thought we
building
killed that.
officials and
Yeah, it's Phil.
we got
Yeah.
a project manager title also.
That position oversees projects as well as a lot of the commercial building
I
inspection.
know which one you're talking about
Yeah.
now, certainly. That one's been filled for 2 years almost.
Been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have projects going on at the moment?
We do. It's fire station primarily is what he's overseeing, those kind of projects. A lot of that in-house, almost all the grading and a lot of the construction.
Yeah, and I'll add to, I think traditionally we've had 2 building inspectors.
Yeah, always.
Is it that much work that we need to?
But assume
one-
so. Yeah, I mean, that will be a department head question.
Also on economic development, I don't got, on one sheet, the salary is 121,000. Then on another sheet I got, it was 109.
I think it's 109, isn't it?
So what is the salary, 109?
I think that's what it is, Brad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, the $12,000 that was voted on last year for the car allowance, where is that in the budget?
that is in the salary.
That's
That would be in
No.
that might be the difference.
Yeah, I don't know. What report are you referring to? Because I've got several.
The last one that you sent had one, I think it was 109.
The one today,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be the base salary.
So how would the car allowance get added into the salary? That, we voted for the
It's in
car
the
allowance. to be
additional
separate, I
payment.
think, wasn't it?
Right. It's on, if you look on page 119, I'm sorry, page 19.
Page 19?
Yeah. That amount budgeted there, the 121, that is the base and the car allowance.
Well, I think the car allowance need to be removed. That's my opinion. And the items that council member recommend be removed, are those gonna be on the sheet like it was last year and they'll be voted up or down?
We have done that a number of different ways, this kind of motions list.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to understand, what council wants to do, what process do you want to use this year? I don't think we've ever found a process that was 100% satisfactory to everybody. And we've kicked that around, the chairman and myself, and we need to come to an understanding on how we're going to do that.
We can do a motion list.
With that kind of thought in mind, we tried to allow a little more time than we have in the past between the work sessions and the second reading. I felt like last year, of course, we were trying to master our electronic meeting format and, one or two didn't work out, but I felt like we rolled into that second reading, maybe not quite where we need to be. So I think, Patty, is it the 26th? The second reading is April 26th? It's toward the end of April, I think. So if we can maybe come out of here tonight knowing what you want on that list, so we got plenty of time to prepare it, get it back for your review. Purposefully, we allowed that extra time because we want to be sure if we get a good second reading, when we get to the third, then it should just be third and final. And I think we want to try to get back to that if we can.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
have you gotten a good feeling from council in reference to the recommendations from staff, millage, trash, and so forth?
Okay, and what we can do some of that tonight. The furlough. One of the things we talked last week is we thought the furlough was an idea that we can go with. Especially as as we deal with it on a day-by-day basis instead of having people to take a week off at a time. Okay, okay, the roof replacement, we agreed that, we're not gonna do it this year.
It was two of them. What about, one of them was $30,000?
Yeah,
We're not gonna do either one,
not gonna do
That's
either
the-
one.
opinion.
Okay, and I guess the other part was the positions that we have vacant today, we wasn't gonna add them, right?
And can we get a list of those positions, the department they come out of and the job title?
What, I was just gonna say, that would, what you guys have already has those removed. You want a list of what's already been removed?
Yeah, just what.
Okay,
And
okay.
the unfunded positions.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And they're not in this draft.
Right.
That they were already not filled, so that's not reflected separately on this sheet. That's already out of this draft.
Okay.
Question, and
Go ahead.
it's just a random thought. The people that furlough, let's say if I choose to furlough for a week and I decide to go to the unemployment office to file, isn't that a little more costly? Just curious, how does that work?
There is a week waiting period,
Right.
so they wouldn't be eligible for unemployment.
Okay. Just a thought.
Yes, sir.
We discussed that.
Yeah.
Earlier to understand, see if we could understand that.
And one of the things we talked about last week is taking the recycle center
Back to 2 days.
to 5 days. Yeah, 5 days versus 6.
I'll be in favor of that.
But not to use Sunday.
Yeah, what is included in our list here, reductions, that's for 2 days, 2 12-hour days. So, just so y'all know, if y'all vote for one, whatever, that'll be up to y'all. But what we included to get to our $17,000 number here at the bottom was 2 days.
Yeah, that's Monday and Wednesdays.
Well, we already closed Wednesday, so that would be Monday and another day.
It's two additional.
It'll,
It will be 2 additional into,
No,
that will be, because we already closed half a day Wednesday. So that will be picking 2 full days.
no,
outside of that.
we'll give you one more day.
it'll probably be best to get with the director and see what day.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know.
But however whatever day you choose, not Sunday, and just one more day.
Okay.
But of course, bring it back.
Right.
'Cause that's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. And how much was you cutting off road maintenance, road repair?
I think we reduced it by 175,000.
Okay.
On the top of the sheet, the trash from detention to towns and the school, that's what the towns and schools paying for their trash service.
Yeah, the top would be kind of additional revenue changes, the bottom would be expense reduction.
And we currently thinking that the town has 171,000 of that, right?
That's what we're estimating, yes.
I understand we want to keep a good relationship, but I think for now I would be in favor of some type of
Are we
payment.
paying any money to the water sewer authority?
They are, was it 25%? I think they're covering the cost of.
Where is it
Haven't
in the
had-
budget?
We haven't had a lot of expenses out of that recently, though. The Department of Commerce has covered most of that.
Yeah.
And do you know where that's coming out of the budget?
It actually doesn't come out of our budget. When they send the statements, they send our 75% and them 25%. So it's, whatever bills we get is already our 75% of that.
Explain that a little bit.
Yeah.
So the bills and things that we've gotten thus far with the water sewer,
Mhm.
we're only billed our 75%. They're billed directly for their piece. So it's not like we have to request them to reimburse us or anything like
Is
that.
our 75% coming out of? I
Yeah,
think that was the
what-
question.
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be in Fund 410.
10.
Yes.
Page 10B.
Be probably toward the back a good bit.
Again, Commerce has covered a considerable amount of that. We expect to get another 1.5 million this year from them on some of the costs associated with that, which is not in this budget yet, but that's basically be money in, money right back out, just to pass through.
That might not be right.
It's on page 93.
Yeah, that's where we have the land. We may be budgeting that engineering. It may be coming out of 008 at this point. In 410 for this year, we've only got the cost of the land so far, which was, budgeted for 21.
So I don't see it for the upcoming budget. What page is it on?
93.
93?
That was where I may have misspoken there. That's where we had budgeted the purchase of the land. I think the actual engineering is coming out of our general operating at this point.
Is it a line item?
We have a line item for engineering. Yes, sir.
What number?
Let me give you the page. Um, 008 is on page 12, and the account number is 5214.
That's 225,000.
I mean, that's engineering. That would be for the entire, that is not just for that. That would be any engineering work we had to do for the entire county.
How much did we spend last year?
I may have to get that. Let me look back in some of my, I might have to get that for you. Most of what I've got is comparing adopted to recommendation, but I can get that out to y'all.
Also, Mr. Chairman, when we get to the motion list, I would like to add in $20,000 to send out a newsletter to each household in the county to explain the situation that we are in. Because I've already been getting several calls.
That's an excellent idea. Excellent idea.
Could we get a list of all the open projects that's going on as well?
Okay.
Outside of Mount Zion, everything except Mount Zion.
Mr. Taylor, I think Mr. Pauley brought up a very good point is that you all take a look at it and see, is there anything we can do around,
Positions?
yeah.
We will do that.
And instead of getting to the point of us having to cut positions, I would be willing to consider a 2-week furlough in order to save people jobs.
I have a question. And it's just my opinion, but I think a lot of these departments can cut more without affecting services to the citizens, because we already getting ready to affect services by closing the collection places down. I mean, that's gonna cause a problem. But to reduce the budget, I'm willing to do it. But I just think the departments I think you need to sort of mandate a percentage now. Another 15%.
One of the problems we do face with that is our largest department is the sheriff's department, and I can't mandate that with them. He's an elected head. He would have to negotiate directly with you all, and I do think there's even some restrictions on once we budget them at a certain amount, we can't go back and start reducing them. So that's one of our largest departments, and so that hinders us from being able to make a huge cut there because that's off limits for
And
me.
EMS is
EMS is the next.
two, and if you
Yeah.
cut those, that service is being cut.
Most of our money gets spent on public safety programs. And so that's when we start cutting those, we start affecting people's lives, safety. And so that does get problematic. Obviously that can be done with EMS and fire, but I can't with the sheriffs. That's just not something I can do.
But EMS, we can't cut it. We can't.
Again, that's
You really are cutting EMS now
right.
because we didn't give them any capital projects,
That's
so we
correct.
can't cut them anymore.
So we really get
That's
down.
why you can even consider that.
It's getting tough without looking at positions because a lot of this we can cut, but it's not realistic because lights have to be kept on, gas has to be put in vehicles. That's about where we're at this point. So we can try to make a few more cuts, but again, most of our money is over here in these public safety, with a lot of it being sheriff's department.
Chairman,
Mr. Paul.
Mr. Taylor, I'm not gonna hold you to a certain number or Mr. Calder, but if you had to take out EMS, Sheriff's Department, and say 911 and fire, what's the number of county employees that you think we would have? Taking away the safety sensitive areas.
Setting those aside, how many employees could be looked at outside of those? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I just want a general number of how many employees we have.
Other than safety sensitive?
Other than safety.
Do you know? I don't know off the top of my head, but Brad.
You're just asking this for information, right?
Yes, ma'am, just random information. Not no particular purpose.
About that area. I don't have fire on there.
160 plus.
How many?
Emergency services are about 160, and that counts law enforcement too.
Okay, so without them, the number of county employees, without the
It's
safety.
around 300. We have around 300 total. Full-time employees. And then what I'll add too.
Taking away the 160, so we got 140.
And then
Yes,
some of those are courthouses or your elected.
Right, courthouse, a lot of, courthouse staff and I'll add, in your list here that we gave y'all last week, we have $482,000 of temporary personnel funding that's a big chunk. And, our goal when we first started was to deal with vacant positions first and temporary positions first. So that's where we've been focused on. We have not tried to, of course, every time a vacancy comes up, we evaluate everything. And we've had instances within this year where we've consolidated. We always look at that first thing we do. Services change, needs change. And so every opportunity we get to cut, we automatically cut. That's what we do, to try to consolidate. So what we have come up with here, we're trying to save, you know, the full-time people who have been employed with us.
Absolutely.
So,
One of the things too is, Mr. Caller, when, the item that Mr. Trapp suggested about doing another week furlough, we've given you all a lot of numbers tonight, a lot of things that we probably want to see different. Is there any way that you can put a one pager together saying, if we do this, this what we'll be? If we did this what we'll be? If we did this what we'll be? On sort of like an Excel spreadsheet, a one pager, so we can really look at all of those items. And then that way we can come back to and say, well, we might can do this, but, and then sort of develop a sort of a long-term plan too,
mhm.
along with the short-term plan.
Yes, sir. And I'll add too, on top of that, we did talk to department heads. I mean, this isn't something that, you know, we just came up with. We talked to them and said, give us the bare minimum, you know, that you could get by with. So they did have input in that too.
Okay.
Did we receive any the stimulus money from the last round?
What was $800,000? Was that the amount?
The CARES Act, that was about the total. So for I guess the fiscal year ending June 30th, about $600,000 worth of expenses on that. We were funded. We didn't get funded till this year, but we're under the CARES Act. And then for the current year we're in, it was about 200 or so more. It was 800 and some change total.
So was some of the expenses salaries that we was paying for like the EMS?
Mhm. A lot of it was, help me out here, Beverly. When you had people that we just had total closures, it helped relieve that because if we had to keep paying somebody's salary, even though the department was totally closed for a period of time or whatever, it gave us relief in that area. Those that were, if anybody was quarantined, you know, what were those 3 items for personnel? It was quarantine, childcare, and
Building closed.
yeah, your building closed. Those items, if we had to keep paying somebody, gave us relief there. That was for, yeah. And then we had to buy a lot of personal protective equipment, a lot of these shields, you know, different things like that, where we had to kind of readjust buildings and public contact, you know, to provide for separation.
This is a pretty tough year. I tell you, it is. I know everybody's doing a lot of work to try to get there, but it's tough. It's tough trying to go through this. It always feels better when you can spend versus not being able to spend. So it's been pretty difficult for all of us. So as we kind of look at it, we'll get through this. It's just that it might be a little painful as we go, but we'll get through this. Okay. Is there any we don't have kind of council time scheduled, but are there any questions for any of the staff, any of us around where we go from here? Or what do you all need from Ms. Bass and others?
Well, Ms. Bass, we do have to prepare the budget in a form for you all to vote on next time. And there'll be a motions list, but we also need to know, especially like with the entities, if we could kind of go back to them, what do you want us to prepare the budget at 30%? Or do you want us to come back with more recommendations on that?
When is the next work session, Ms. Davis? Is it after the second reading? But is it after the second reading or before the second?
No, it's before the second reading. Yeah. Yeah. I think we had all the work sessions before the second reading. And I think we had one on there kind of if needed. Yeah. But we definitely wanted to allow a good period of time if we had to develop that motions list, whatever. I want us to go in that second reading in a good spot.
Okay, so if I was to say so, I would say repair it at 30%, y'all, 30%. That's your question. Okay. Anything else you need?
It's passed.
The next, what'd you say the work session was?
Um, we'll get together so we can, prior to that, so we can go, have an order of preferences, how we look at it. So that way we can make sure we, all in agreement, how we look at it going forward. So we'll be able to give you more concrete answers, how we can look at the budget.
Yeah, and that's about 2 weeks away rather than kind of week to week. So if we can get you something, start getting it in the form of a motions list and, and then kind of get that fine tuned, a little bit more and a little bit more. So we can, I think we got a little, we've got that extra time to do that.
Council, what I'm afraid of is, to be really frank with all of you all, is that we go into this year and we're making these serious cuts because they are cuts. Really, this is probably $3 to $5 million cut that we're proposing. It really is. So then, okay, with the cuts we're making this year, if we don't do something sort of different or do something, we really got to look at it. So next year, we won't come up with the same kind of issues and that kind of stuff. And with that, Mr. Taylor, one of the things is that as we look at the money that we might be able to get from the rescue plan, we talked about whether we can do a regional approach, whether we know what that is and what we can use it for. And if we can use it, for instance, like we could buy a fire truck or something. I don't know. Okay, but if we could, that means we could get that out of the way, or repair a roof. We could get that out of the way. And I don't know whether we can do that kind of stuff.
I mean, again, I would 100% agree with that in the fact that this is one-time money, and if it can be used for these one-time expenses that defer us from having to do it the next year, such as buy a fire truck, so you don't have to buy that the upcoming year or do the roof. Again, this is not recurring money. We know this is really one-time money. So if that one-time money can be used for one-time expenses, I think that would be the most appropriate way to approach it.
Yeah. And have you been able to look at any of the state money that Senator Fanning was talking about?
What we're proposing and we're trying to put together is to see if we can get this fire station covered primarily with that. That's what we're trying to put forth.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, sir, Ms. Paula.
Well, I know it's not a county council time, but I just wanted to everybody to have a good Easter weekend.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any questions? I know I'm looking at Miss Bass and Mr. Calder, and I see the sadness and stuff on your face. But let me tell you something. We're gonna get through this. It might be a little tough, but we'll get through it. And then where we'll find ourselves, okay, in the long run, better off because we did it now. We will. It didn't take us, we didn't get here overnight, and we won't be able to solve this problem overnight. Can we get a motion before, Ms. Davis, I think you have something for us. I think she have a box prepared for us. If nothing else, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and second that we be adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, nay? No nays, so we stand adjourned at 7:26.
We ain't gonna fix it.
Midlands Tech.
Yeah, but